All right. This is a one speaker meeting. Please welcome our speaker tonight, Aspen.
Thank you very much. Hi, everybody. I'm Aspen. I'm an alcoholic. And it's such a great honor and privilege to be here tonight. And I first want to get some of the preliminaries taken care of. First, I would like to thank Michelle for granting me the honor and privilege of participating in Alcoholics Anonymous. And I'd like to thank my sponsor. Oh, we have to get the taping right here. We have to get. Okay. I'd like to thank my sponsor for coming along with me to support me, and also for I think she had something to do with me speaking tonight. I think she put in a good word to Michelle. So I hope I make her proud tonight. And I want to welcome you if you're new here tonight. I was told when I first came to Alcoholics Anonymous that maybe we'll just wait. That you were the most important person. When I first came to my first AA meeting, I heard that. I heard that, if you're new in these rooms, you're the most important person in these rooms. And I just thought, I was not happy about being here in Alcoholics Anonymous. I was not excited about that. I did not wake up one day and say, I really don't have a social life. I really need to have more positive relationships. I really need to get a spiritual life. I think I'll go to AA. I didn't do that. And this was really totally the last house on the block for me. And, and that's how I ended up here. I was not happy about being here. I thought that I had really hit the bottom of the bucket. I really thought you can't get any worse than being an alcoholic, really. And I came just to get some other preliminaries out of the way. I came here when I was 19 years old. For the grace of God, I have not had a drink. I'm 24 years sober, and I'm 43. So if you're wondering, I have people walk up to me and say, "What did you do? Get sober when you were 5?" And that's not true. I got sober when I was 19. I was lucky enough and grateful enough and desperate enough and that's what I really hope for you if you're new here tonight. I wish you desperation. And I'm sure you're not thinking very nice thoughts about me by wishing that upon you, but really, if I would have had one more good answer, you'd have a different speaker tonight. I needed to be desperate. I couldn't have any more answers, and I didn't have any more answers. And so I've always been taught to share in a general way what it used to be like, what happened, and what it's like today. My drinking story is really quite boring. It was so funny. We were sitting in the front here, and everybody thought that Karen was going to speak. And I was like, yeah, she's going to speak. Because her story is a lot more exciting than mine is, unfortunately. Mine's just a garden variety. But anyway, I started drinking when I was about... I guess I had my first drink when I was a youngster. I mean, my family drank, and it was kind of a culture in our family. We drank. I don't know that there was really any real alcoholics except my grandfather, who I really liked a lot. He was like my favorite guy, and he took naps at unusual times in unusual places. I was later to find out that he was actually passing out in the living room or wherever. He used to hide Jim Beam in unusual places, like where we kept the dishes. I always thought that was kind of strange. And then as I grew up and became an alcoholic, then it seemed perfectly normal to me. And so my grandfather was really the only alcoholic that I really knew. And I just thought he was cool. Most of my family thought he was gross and obnoxious, and I thought he was great to be around. And he eventually died of complications related to alcoholism. I think he ended up, getting other illnesses that we get when we keep drinking, and he never got the pleasure of being sober. Like I said, my grandfather was pretty much my favorite guy. My family, I didn't have a really great family. I didn't come from a loving place. I came from a normal, dysfunctional family, and the good things were not happening at my house, and I was physically abused, emotionally abused. I had been a victim of sexual abuse, and when I came here, the only reason I share that is when I came here, I would have used that till I died. that I was a victim, and that's why I drank, and that's why I acted the way I did, and that's why I have to do those things, and that's why it's all your fault. And that just almost drove me right out of the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous and back drinking again, And I learned through the steps that really, I'm not a victim. I mean, those are bad things that happen, I get, and they're not good things that happen, but not everybody becomes an alcoholic that is abused, and really that has nothing to do with my alcoholism. It just happens to be something that happened in my life. And so, like I said, my start wasn't real good, and so my first real drink that I recall, though, is when I was probably about 13 or 14. I was in the 8th grade. 8th or 9th grade, I think, and I was having an exceptionally bad day for an 8th and 9th grader, I guess, at school, and I met this girl, and it'll kind of give you a lot of information just in her name. Her name was Velvet, and she was she's kind of what you would describe as incorrigible, She was much more developed than I was. Physically, mentally, everything. She was much more worldly. And so we met kind of in the library or something. I always meet the positive people. And so I met her, and I thought she was really cool. And she said, "Let's run away." I said, "That's a great idea." And so we made a quick plan, as we do, and with no thought, and we ran away. And so we began to hitchhike, and I didn't really know much about Velvet, really. I mean, other than she obviously had more experience than I had. And keep in mind, I haven't really drank yet. And so we're hitchhiking, and she said, "Okay, I got a plan, and here's what we're going to do. We're going to hitchhike, and we're going to hitchhike to Las Vegas, and we're going to be prostitutes." And you don't know me very well, but I am not prostitute material. And so I was really... Let's just put it simply, I really needed a drink very badly. And this little description I'm about to tell you will explain why I'm an alcoholic, because what happened is we got picked up by an older gentleman, and he had a case of beer, and he said, "Do you want some?" And I said, "Uh-huh," and I chugged it down. And I remember when I chugged that beer, I thought, I could be a prostitute. It's not that big a deal. What am I worrying about, And that I was later to find out is the difference between an alcoholic and not that alcohol really changes my whole perception. It changes how you look. It changes how everybody else looks. And, and I'm just as good as you are. I'm just as smart as you are. I'm everything you are. And I can do anything I want as long as I have alcohol. And that's pretty much what happened. And I kept... after I took that first drink, I thought it was wonderful. Of course, I got sick, and we got caught, and, it was all Velvet's fault, the reason I turned out the way and so my family tried to, fix me, and little did they know it really didn't have anything to do with Velvet. It had nothing to do with Velvet. It had to do with alcohol, and I drank furiously and tried to get alcohol at every opportunity I could from then on, because I found out that was the magic, and, like I said, my story is really pretty boring. Basically, alcohol, just like the big book talks about, alcohol was the center core of my life. All I cared about is where I'm going to get that next drink and how I'm going to get the effect produced by alcohol. I didn't care if it was going to hurt you. I didn't care if I wasn't keeping a commitment. I didn't care if you were my friend. I didn't care if you weren't my friend. I didn't care if you were my parents. I didn't care if you're not supposed to disrespect your parents, say those things to your parents. You're getting in my way of alcohol, and I need alcohol. And that was the reality. That's what my life came down to. And at age, when you're a teenager, it's kind of hard to get alcohol. You sort of have to be a little creative. Drink in the car, drink on the streets, find whoever you can to get alcohol, and that's basically what I did, and I didn't see anything wrong with that, really. And I didn't understand when my parents would get upset and say, "Where have you been?" when I'm coming home at 4 a.m. after I've been drunk, and I'm my room had graduated down to the basement because, well, that's the best place for me. So I would fall down the basement stairs, and they'd say, "Are you all right? Did something happen?" "Oh, I just don't feel so good. I ate something bad, And really it was because I was drunk, And so my parents didn't really know what to do with me, and I think they kind of knew something wasn't quite right with their kid. So um, my dad worked for a big company, so he decided that if we moved away to another state, then we could all just start all over and everything would be great. And but little did he know he was taking Aspen with him, and so sort of ruined the whole thing, you know. So we went to we moved to Texas. If you're from Texas, I have no opinion other than I hated it, and because it was a dry county. I had never heard of like really dry counties before, but I found out you can't get alcohol in dry counties, you know, and I just thought this really stinks, you know, and I was forced into sobriety. I literally was forced into sobriety, and what happens to me is when you take alcohol away from me, I become irritable, restless, and discontent, and I'm not very good to live with, and I'm exactly what the book talks about. I become irritable, restless, and discontent, and so here I am living in Texas as a young kid, and so I can't drink. So I decided I'll just really get involved in school as much as I can, and really get. And the big book talks about young people, and it talks about if you quit at a certain point, then you'd probably be all right. But we don't quit at that certain point, And probably had I quit at that certain point, maybe it would have been okay, maybe it wouldn't have been. But it's a moot point because I didn't stay quit, and I didn't plan to stay quit, And so what happened is I became very suicidal, and I couldn't live without alcohol. And my grandmother came to visit, and she saw this terrible thing going on, and so she said that she would take me, that she was going to take me, and that was a mixed blessing for all of us, I guess. And she basically took me, and she allowed me to do, she said, you just live here, and you just, we treat this like a roommate situation, and you just tell me where you're going and be respectful, and you can do pretty much anything, and but I think she thought I had some common sense about that, She didn't realize that I was doing all the stuff that I was doing, and it kind of was a neat setup because she was a nurse's aide and she worked the night shift, so that worked really well for me. And so I'd go out carousing and drinking and getting drunk and loaded, and she had no idea that what was happening at her house while she was gone at work, And I was one of those alcoholics that I led a double life. Like, I'd look to your face and I'd look like an innocent kid that wouldn't do anything. And the kid down the block is the one that gets in all the trouble, not me, They're having a bad influence on her, And so I lived kind of a double life, And that's why I'm lucky to have the sponsor I have, because she doesn't think there's any double life to me. She knows me perfectly, inside and out. That doesn't even faze her. She doesn't even see me as an innocent person. And it doesn't work with Karen. She doesn't see any innocence. And so I did that thing with my grandma, and I kept drinking, and I got into some trouble, and the trouble I got into is I couldn't get along with others. I didn't play well with others, and people didn't want to be around me because they don't like it that you puke on their car and you puke inside their car and you do obnoxious things. After a while, they don't want to be your friend anymore, And they don't want to hang out with you because you get the drunkest and you get the most obnoxious, and they end up having to take care of you, and they don't want to do that, And that's what was happening for me. And so I ended up going away to school. Somehow I graduated high school early. I went away to school, and then there were no limits on me. Then everything was, it was like I was in college, and the drinking age was 18, and I went to Pittsburgh, Kansas, and it was a university. Oh, somebody knows Pittsburgh, Kansas. How cool. There's always somebody in the crowd. It's a very small, it's like a dot in the road, except that there's a university there, and there's like 3 or 4 bars, and there's more bars than there really is a learning environment that's going on. And I'm sorry to say I spent more time at the bars than I did at the university, And so what happened is, as you can imagine, my life ran out my sleeve. I couldn't, I was drinking, and I started to realize that something wasn't right here, and so I tried. I don't recommend this, but I tried to quit on my own. I tried to white knuckle it and said I'm not going to drink. And It was terrible. Don't do that. Without AA. It was just horrible. I mean, I was just like insane. I was like between homicidal and suicidal. I mean, all I did was think about drinking and crawling out of my skin and killing myself and killing you, and it was horrible. And then I went to work at a treatment center and to help others gain insight into their alcoholism. And you got to keep in mind, I thought there was nothing wrong with me. I just thought I have a little I just need to quit. I really was not willing to acknowledge that alcohol was my problem. I mean, I'm here to fix you, really. And so that's what I did. I worked for this treatment center, and they'd say things like, "You sure do relate to us. Seems like you're kind of like it." I'm like, "Yeah, right." And so I ended up leaving the treatment center, and things got worse. And to make a long story short here and less boring, is what happened is that I ended up in a dorm room where nobody could live with me. I could not have a roommate anymore. My roommate had moved out. And I was drinking codeine cough syrup, basically. And I could not function in my life. I could not hold a job any longer. I could not go to school. I could not do the things that young adults are supposed to be doing, like going to school and holding and working and supporting themselves and having goals. I had none of those. I remember when I went to treatment, they said, "What are your values?" I'm like, "What is that?" I didn't have any idea what they were talking about. And so the reality is what happened is my last drink was really codeine cough syrup. I was drinking codeine cough syrup, and I lost track of days, and I thought, this is not normal behavior. And I had met somebody that had 3 years of sobriety in Alcoholics Anonymous, and she seemed to be doing fairly well. She seemed to be doing a lot better than I was. And she had kind of been planting the seed, like playing AA tapes for me, which I thought she was doing for herself, but I later found out she was really doing for me. She got me to go to my first AA meeting by saying that I should go because then I would understand my patients at the treatment center better. And really all I saw was a lot of smoke. The room was real smoky, and a lot of people didn't have their teeth, and that's what I remember about my first, isn't that horrible? That's what I remember about my first meeting. It was these women, they just seemed really old, they had really lived, and I was like, I'm 19, this can't be, oh no. And so, what eventually happened for me, obviously, is I became more and more desperate, and I did get in touch with the fact that I probably needed some help, and that I probably could not stay sober on my own, and that alcohol was probably the problem. And so I went to a treatment center. They put me in a treatment center. Like my sponsor says, I don't really have any opinion, but it must have been a good treatment center because they threw me into AA. They said, "Go to AA, that's what's going to keep you sober. This is just a safe spot for you to be, so you can have a safe place to not drink and learn how to stay sober. AA is where you're going to learn how not to drink, so go to AA." And so, and that's what I did. And I went, like I said, I went to a treatment center, and then I went to a halfway house. I spent about 9 months there. It was a hard surrender for me. It took me a lot. It was very hard. I was 19 years old, and I didn't want, to be honest with you, I didn't want to be an alcoholic. I just thought, I'm too young. No way, I can't be an alcoholic. I was like the big book, some way, somehow I'm going to be able to drink. I'm going to be able to control and enjoy my drinking. And I came to understand, as I've stayed in this program, that I'm never going to control and enjoy my drinking. I can control my drinking, not enjoy it. I can enjoy my drinking, not control it. But I can't do both. I can't seem to get both at the same time. And that's never going to happen for me. I'm powerless over alcohol. My life is unmanageable. And I'm glad that I stuck around. And if you're new here tonight, I wanted to say to you that I didn't believe all this stuff when I walked in. When I walked in the door, okay, I'm powerless over alcohol. My life is unmanageable. I'm ready to believe in a power greater than myself that can restore me. I thought, what is that? What is all this crap? I don't understand it. And, the greatest thing was the old-timers in the room said, you don't need to understand any of this. You don't have to understand that book. You don't have to understand those steps. All you got to do is come to these meetings and listen to what we're saying and do some of the things that we're suggesting you to do, and those things will make sense to you. And I'm really glad they said that. They didn't say, go home and you got to understand these steps perfectly and you got to do these steps perfectly before. They said, no, you just come to the meetings, and as you come to the meetings, you'll come to understand those steps and you'll work those steps. And when you get to that step 4, you'll be ready for that step 4, but right now you're on step 1. And you're here in this meeting, so that's the first step. You're starting to take step 1. And they really kept it very simple because I'm a very complicated person. I like to figure everything out. I think I'm very smart and intelligent. And when it comes to this, I'm not smart at all. In fact, it really hinders me a lot. And so anyway, I got done with that treatment center. I was lucky, like I said, they threw me into Alcoholics Anonymous. I started to come to AA meetings, and I wasn't lucky to get sober here in the Midwest, in Southern California, where the sponsorship ethic is really strong, and that we really have. I mean, this is, like my sponsor says, this is the mecca of AA, really. If you're in these rooms tonight, you are lucky. Not saying that the other AA doesn't work, because it does work just fine, but it didn't work so good for me as I continued on. I needed a little stronger, really disciplined AA. But anyway, I was in the Midwest, and this is kind of how it worked at the meetings I was going to at the Midwest. First of all, when you got about 7 years of sobriety and you're a woman, you didn't need AA anymore, so then people left AA. And so when I got 7 years sober, I thought, well, I shouldn't need AA anymore. So I decided to go read crystals and go to churches and die of untreated alcoholism in the rooms of AA, because I thought you're supposed to find other things. That's what they're doing around here. I didn't realize that, and it almost killed me, because that's not AA. And so anyway, like I said, I was getting sober in the Midwest, and things weren't going well for me. At 7 years of sobriety, I was walking into rooms of AA, and this is how hopeful I was to the newcomer. Well, I almost drank, but I didn't drink. I came here. I'm so glad I'm here. I'm grateful to be sober. And I'm sure the new people just felt really hopeful. Well, that's what it's going to be like when I'm 7. I can't wait. So like I said, I was dying of alcohol. I didn't even know I was dying of untreated alcoholism. And I had a friend in the meetings that was kind of watching me, and I was like the most active woman in AA with 7 years of sobriety, I'm sorry to say, in the Midwest. And she said, you need to find a sponsor that's more active than you and that's going to help you. I got this sponsor in Southern California, and she's really good. You should call her. I said, okay. So she gave me the number, and I put it in my pocket. I thought, well, that's a little extreme to call someone in Southern California. I live in the Midwest. And you know how we are. We're not quite drowning yet, so I have to try a few more things. And so then my friend, knowing me quite well, she calls ahead for me and gives Karen a little heads up, will you sponsor this girl? She's really messed up, basically. She didn't tell me that till later. And so things got worse, right? I'm sitting on the couch now, and I'm thinking there ain't no good reason to stay sober anymore, and this ain't where AA doesn't work. And little did I know, it doesn't work. It doesn't have nothing to do with AA. I'm not working in I'm not working AA. So I called Karen, and she said, well, honey, you need a sponsor. You need to work those steps, and you need to do an inventory, and you need to do it like it's written in the big book. And, well, and you need to start praying, and you need to go to meetings. And I said, she said, but you need a sponsor. And I said, well, I knew I was making I wasn't sure about this, but I thought I'm making a pact with the devil, I think. But I said, will you be my sponsor? And she said, well, you better listen to what I want you to do before you ask me that question. And then she shot off like all these directions, and I'm like, so, and as is always, when I don't really, not that I don't hear it, but I don't really like it, I say, excuse me, and then she repeats it again for me, assuming that I didn't hear it, but it really wasn't that I didn't hear it, it's really that I didn't, oh my God, So, the upshot was that something was doing something for me. There was a part of me that wanted to stay sober more than I wanted to drink, and there was a grace of God, I believe, and I said, okay, I'll do those things. Whatever you say, because I don't want to live like this. And so I started to do those things that she suggested to me. And before, when I was I had sponsors before, and how sponsorship worked was They gave you suggestions, and I'm smart, right? I'm educated. So suggestions, if you look it up in the dictionary, says suggestion. You could do it. You don't have to do it. So that's how I worked sponsorship in the Midwest. They'd say, well, we suggest that read that Came to Believe book. Okay, that's a good suggestion, but I'm not doing it, and that's how my life was. And it's kind of funny now, but at the time it wasn't very funny because I was running my life into the ground and headed right back for the drink. I mean, it wasn't an attitude to have, really, And, but the funny thing, ever since I got Karen, she has never said the word suggestion to me. Which tells me that I have exactly the right sponsor, because she's never said, well, Aspen, I suggest that you work that inventory, and I suggest you go find those people and make them. She never said that. See, not everybody works the same way for sponsorship, but this works best for me, and I'm just sharing my experience, strength, and hope, and that is that I need somebody that's going to get in my face, because I will talk myself out of things. I'm a very tricky alcoholic. I will trick myself into thinking, there might be somebody I really owe an amends to, and I will sit there and think about it, and I'll think, you know what? I don't owe them amends. They owe me one. I will twist it. And so I need somebody that untwists it for me. And I can't even go, and that's who Karen is for me as a sponsor. She untwists things. I'll have it all worked out. I remember one time I lived in the Midwest. I told this woman I worked with exactly what I thought about how she did her job. And I thought I said, I can't wait to tell Karen. She's going to say I was exactly right, And I got on the phone with Karen, and she goes, you did what? I said, well, I told her that she was, I took her inventory. And she goes, how is that your business? I'm like, it's not. If she could go make amends to her. I'm like, but and had I not had a sponsor in that situation, I would have convinced myself that it was A-okay what I did. And it wasn't. Totally, it was not. It was not okay. It wasn't loving, and it wasn't kind, or any of those things. And so that's what sponsorship has been for me, is about giving me clear direction. This is how you do this step. This is how you do this step. This is what you need. This is what I want you to do. And my life, as a result, has gotten better. And I'm happy to report here tonight that since I've gotten Karen and started to take those actions, I haven't felt like drinking. I haven't felt like AA doesn't work. Everything that I've gotten in my life and that is in my life has come as a result of Alcoholics Anonymous. I feel like I get everything I need from AA. I don't need to go anyplace else, and that's just my own personal opinion. But so, like I said, Karen started sponsoring me, and she gave me a few quick directions. One was to do that inventory, and you see, when I did the inventory, I thought it was all about you, so I wrote everything that you did to me. So I left out a very important column in the inventory, which is the fourth column, which talks about my part in it. I really didn't think, I thought, well, I don't have a part, so what do I need that column for? And hence going back to a sponsor. And Karen pointed out, that I probably could benefit from that column. So I did that. You do that column, and she had to help. Frankly, to be quite honest, she had to help me to see my part in things and to see where I needed to make amends. And like I said, I have 24 years of sobriety, and now I'm a little better at that. Now I can see, that probably wasn't the right thing to say. Yeah, I probably do owe that person an amends. I don't always have to run back. She doesn't have to tell me every amends. I usually have already made the amends by the time I've told her, because I already know that's what I need to do, and that's benefited me greatly. And so if you're new here, I encourage you to get a sponsor and to really get involved with that sponsor, and to, get somebody that's worked the steps. They told me, they said, hey, the meetings are really good, but the program is in the book. So you got to have somebody that knows the book, that can help you walk through the book, so you can get some of the promises and the benefits from, working those steps. And that's what's happened as a result of sponsorship for me. So I encourage you to get a sponsor. And so, as I told you, I lived in the Midwest, and Karen speaks all over the place, and she lived here in Southern California, and I lived in Missouri, and my best friend that had helped me get Karen as a sponsor was moving out here. And so there wasn't, I was losing connection. I was going to lose some connections. And so I'm just going to tell you the power of sponsorship and, doing things that you don't necessarily believe in that can turn out to be good, So what happened is that Karen said, I don't think you really have anything in Missouri. Why don't you move to Southern California and be a part of the Pacific group? There's a lot of stuff going on out here. There's good AA, and why don't you come here and be a part of the Pacific group and do that? And I thought, earthquakes. There's earthquakes there. And she said, yeah, there's tornadoes where you're at. And so I couldn't believe it, but I said, okay, I'll come. I will, because I believe I had taken the actions long enough and my life had gotten better, and Karen had not given me direction that, she didn't give me direction that I had to move, by the way. She just said, you might want to think about that. Maybe that'd be a good thing for you. And I decided it was a good thing, and it has been the best thing that I've done. And I've been able to live with the earthquakes and the traffic. But it's so funny, the things that you're most fearful of until you do them, you don't realize they're it's like me and Karen will be driving around. She go, remember how scared you were it used to be? And it's really true. And so, I ended up moving here, which was a great thing. And I got involved in my home group, which is the Pacific group, and I've gotten involved here at the Marina Center, and I've been able to have a real good cross section of Alcoholics Anonymous, I think, and I've become, I've done several things in AA, and I'm so grateful for that, all because I've been pushed in that direction, and I've put myself in the center of Alcoholics Anonymous, and my life is good today as a result of those things, So I encourage you, if you're new, get in the middle of AA. Do what get yourself a sponsor. Find some people that are going in a direction that you want to go in, that are staying sober, that have some time, and do what they do. And you will stay sober just as I have stayed sober, and I'm so grateful. And again, I want to thank Michelle for asking me. I want to thank my sponsor for being such an influential part of my life and really getting my life back on track and keeping me in the middle of Alcoholics Anonymous, because it's truly for the grace of God and great sponsorship and Alcoholics Anonymous that I'm sober here tonight and able to share with you. So thank you.